Okay. So this is your MuseScore tutorial. Down here in the right corner is the thing I'm using to record this, so that you can see me and you can see my screen and you can hear what I'm saying and everything. So, first of all, here's our icon. The most recent version of the app, or the software, whatever, is MuseScore 3. Before I had MuseScore 2, I have upgraded to MuseScore 3. So that's what I'm going to be using. So open that. When you first open it, if you've already started to make sheet music, it'll show you the most recent ones that you've been working on so that you can edit those. If you want to make a new one, it's got this handy dandy create new score right there. And if you want to edit one that you've already started that you don't see here, then you can open a score from wherever you save your sheet music to on your computer. So we're going to create new score. We can title it whatever we want. Let's do Happy Birthday. I'm going to subtitle it. Birthdays are happy. So this is little tiny words that go underneath the main title. Composer, I don't know who the composer is. Sometimes if a song has been around for a really long time and no one remembers who the first one was to write it, it'll be called traditional. A lot of nursery rhymes and stuff like that don't really have an actual credited composer, so we'll put traditional. Okay, here is where we pick what type of sheet music we want to make. So choose instruments. I've never actually used this option because I've never needed to. This is a version that gives us just a treble clef. This is a version that gives us just a treble clef without a title, but I prefer to have the ones that include the title. So we have bass clef by itself with no title, grand staff, and grand staff with no title. So we're going to go with grand staff with the little title here. So we'll go next. If our song has a specific key signature or scale that we want to use, we have all of our different key signatures here. And if you hover over it, it'll tell you the name of the scale. So, by the way, this one is super not fun. 7 flats, that means every single note turns into a flat. There are some flats that are white keys. We'll talk about that later. This is F major or D minor. Each major scale has a relative minor scale, but we'll go over that later too. So, we'll stick with, actually, I like a G major. You can also set your tempo, which is your speed. I'll set it to the default 120, but if you wanted to change that in the beginning, you can type in whatever you want, or you can use the arrow buttons. Okay. It's easiest to do this with a mouse, by the way. If you have a laptop, you might have a touchpad, which is basically the little mouse thingy that it comes with. I'm using a mouse right now. I have done this without a mouse before, but it's not really that fun. Okay, now, we can change our time signature here. So we can have our common time 4/4. You change 3/4, 5/4, which feels really weird, but does exist. This C stands for 4/4. This C with a line through it, I can go over later. We probably won't need this for a while. Pickup measure is like if you have an extra little measure at the beginning where you're not starting from beat 1, you're starting from like the last two beats of a measure or whatever. It's the last one beat. And this basically says my first measure isn't going to have all the beats in it, just the last however many I want. But I'm not going to do that. And then if you want to have a lot of measures in your song, you can set how many you want here. But we'll stick with the default 32. And finish. So here we go. We have our title. We have our subtitle, composer, tempo. And because we picked grand staff, we already have our treble clef and our bass clef. Our grand staff is already all set up for us. We have our time signature and our key signature. And you can click on any part of your, you can click on any part of your score. So score is another fancy word for sheet music, basically. And since we haven't put in any notes, this whole thing is full of whole rests. Now, if you click on one of these and you drag it, well, I thought I could move it, but I guess not. So anyway, so to put notes in, you click on a rest and then press N on your keyboard. Now we have this highlighted and we have a little note symbol here. Whatever line or space you click on, that note will go to. So, let's see. I'm just going to put in our notes. Now it's possible that you've already noticed that I've made some mistakes in the tune. I did this on purpose so that we can learn how to fix them. Okay, also, if you have a little star next to the title of your song, that means that you haven't saved it yet or you've made changes to it that haven't been saved. So, to save it, you can either do this, click on File, and click on Save. And because I haven't started this as a file yet, it'll show me this window. I'm okay with that. I'm going to save it to my desktop so I can see it right away. Or, if you don't want to click through and you just want to press buttons, you can press the Control key on the bottom left of your keyboard, hold that down, and press S for save. Now, something else cool about this is that it will play your music for you and you can hear whether the notes that you've put in are correct or not. So I'm going to click on our first note, and you can either press the play button up here, or you can press the space bar on your keyboard. So I'm going to press space. Here we go. Okay. So that last part sounded a little bit like the song, but the rest of it, not quite so much. So, if you're making sheet music for a song that you're learning by ear, you need to be able to tell what intervals things are, and if you make a mistake, you're going to want to know whether a note is too high or too low, and then adjust accordingly. So let's see. You have dun 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 dun. So right now, oh yeah, by the way, to change what note a note is, you can click it and drag it up and down. Or you can use the up and down arrows on your keyboard, and the up and down arrows will make it go up by a half step or down by a half step. So this is a C, I can turn it into a C sharp, and then D. I need one more note, so I'm going to click on this rest. Then up here we have our different note values. So if you click on a rest and you don't press N, and you click on a note value, it'll turn it into that kind of rest. So also, if you do something that you wish you hadn't done, you can press one of these arrows to undo or redo. Or you can hold down the Control key and press Z, and that undoes it also. Control with Y is redo. So Control Z is undo and Control Y is redo. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to press N, And the note that the type of note, the note value that it automatically gives you is a quarter note. If I wanted it to be something else, I can click on any of these note values up here, and that's the type of note that I'll be putting in. So I made our last note a whole note. So now let's hear it. And if you want to stop it, you can press the space button, or space bar, I guess. Okay. Now, the notes sound right, but the rhythm's a little off. I have a little star here. I'm going to save it. Normally, I would use the buttons on my keyboard, but my S doesn't work very well, so I'm clicking instead to save. Okay, so first of all, the notes aren't dun 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 dun. They're a little bit bouncier than that. Dun 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 dun. So here's how we can do that. Actually, let me see if I remember how to do this. I know that there is a way that you can double or half your rhythm, so that instead of quarter notes, this would all be eighth notes, or I could change it so that it's half notes instead of quarter notes. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I have to copy this. So to copy, you can either go to edit and click copy, or you can hold the control button and press C. So control C to copy. Also, to select a measure, click somewhere in the blank space. So if you click on a note, it'll select the note. If you click somewhere in the middle of the measure on the staff, it'll select the measure. Then if you want to select a whole section, hold down the shift button and then click on the end of the section that you want. Okay, now I'm going to copy this. So I'm going to hold down control and press C. And then I'm going to paste half duration. So duration is how long something lasts. So if these are going to last half as long, it's going to turn my quarter notes into eighth notes, and my whole note will turn into a half note. I want to take out these extra notes over here. These aren't part of what I'm doing. So I can highlight these and hold down the control button and press X to take those out. Now let's see how this sounds. Okay, so it's still not quite what we want. I'm going to make it a little bit slower. So instead of 120, let's set it to 100. That's a little bit more of a reasonable speed, but our notes still aren't quite bouncy enough. So let me show you how to do that. So actually, first of all, we have this column on the left, and this has a lot of things for you to add to your music. You can change your clefs from here. So here's our regular treble clef, regular bass clef. The rest of these you probably won't need, but they're there if you do need them. Key signatures, time signatures, and you can actually make your own time signature if you want. So I can make something crazy like 13/8. Let's see. How do I want to do this? Now I'm just sort of messing around. But anyway, so you can make your own time signature if you ever need to or want to. Once again, you probably won't need to, but it's there if you want. Brackets, so these are just things that connect your staves. So for a grand staff, we have a brace. This is our little curvy guy here. Accidentals, So you can use this to add sharps and flats to things. I just did the undo thing. But it's actually, in my opinion, it's easier to just click on the note and press the up arrow if you want to sharp, or the down arrow if you want to flat. Articulations are like accents, fermatas, staccatos. And to use those, you drag them to a note. So if I want this note to be extra long, for example, I click on the fermata and I hold the click and I drag it. And then I let go once it's on the note and it shows me a little plus sign. I'll show you that again more slowly. Okay, so I grab the fermata, I pull it over, and there's a little circle with a line through it, basically saying that if I were to let go right now, it wouldn't do anything. Okay, now it shows a little teeny tiny plus sign. You might have to look very closely, but it's a little plus sign instead of the circle with a line through it. So that, and the note is highlighted blue also. So in MuseScore, whenever you're looking at the thing that you're working with, it'll highlight it blue so that you know that that's the thing that you're editing. So now I'm going to let go, and there's our fermata. And you can do that with all the little things here. Ornaments, these are fancy symbols for certain techniques that we haven't learned yet. Breaths and pauses is what it sounds like if you're telling a singer to take a breath, or someone playing an instrument to pause. Pause is not the same thing as rest, but we'll talk about that later. Grace notes, we haven't really gone over quite yet. Well, some of my students have, not everybody. We probably won't need different note heads, but I can show you what this does. If you drag this to the head of a note, it changes what it looks like. X's are used when you have rhythm but no pitch. It's like for drums and clapping and stuff like that. Okay, lines. Here's something useful. Okay, so we have a slur for legato. So once again, you have to drag this to a note in order to use it. If I drag it over here to the empty space and let go, it won't do anything. If I drag it up here, also won't do anything. So it has to be attached to a note. So once I'm hovering over the note and it shows me the little plus sign and the note is blue, I can let go. Now, this right now is a teeny tiny little slur. I don't want a teeny tiny little slur. I want it to cover a whole phrase. So what you do for that is double click it. So that means that you click twice really fast. And now it's really tiny, but it is highlighted under there. The reason that this looks the way it does, we have all these little tiny squares that show different parts of the slur that you can edit. Right now the slur, or not slur, the square that's all the way on the right side is the one that I'm working with right now. So if you hold down Shift and you press the right arrow key, it will move the slur over by one note at a time. So I could put the slur over the whole entire thing, but slurs are supposed to help show phrases, and we have a few different phrases here, so let's see. Dun, 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 dun. I'll just put it on those first few notes. Okay, so now we have our slur. And usually, MuseScore will automatically put it on the end that is best for which way the notes are facing. Or the stems, I mean. Oh, don't know why I'm yawning. Anyway, so if you want to change whether the slur is underneath or on top, you click on it, and it'll turn blue, and press X, just X by itself. If you hold down Control and you press X, it'll take it away. Control Z to undo. So we have our slur there. I'm going to leave it underneath the way that it is because we don't want it to run into the stems. We have crescendos and diminuendos. There are two different ways to show crescendo or diminuendo. One is to have this guy here. Once again, you double click it. This red dotted line will show you where the end of the crescendo is. If you want to make it longer, press Shift and the right arrow key. If you want to make it shorter, do the opposite. Hold shift and press the left arrow key. We don't really need any crescendos in this song though, so I'm going to take this out. Control X. Another way to do a crescendo is just to have the word crescendo abbreviated. Usually you would do this if you have a really long crescendo for like a whole entire section of music. If the crescendo is a little bit shorter, then you can use the triangle thing instead. It's called a hairpin, I guess. So we have first and second and even third endings over here. So we have first ending, and these just have to be dragged to a bar line. Okay, so the red dot shows you which bar line it's going to be attached to. Now, in order for a first and second ending to work, you have to have repeat signs. We have some more cool stuff here. We have pedal marks, we have octave marks, we have a trill. Mostly what I use in this section of MuseScore is I use slurs, I use crescendos and diminuendos, I use first and second endings, octave, and pedal. I don't really use much of the other stuff. Just like I don't really tend to make songs that have those in them. Now, let's see, where were we? Bar lines. Okay, so a first and second ending doesn't work without a repeat. So we have a few different types of repeats and bar lines here. So this is a normal bar line. So if I drag this over to here, and you can drag a bar line to a measure, or you can drag it to another bar line. So the measure that I'm putting this on is highlighted red there at the bottom. If I release this, it turns my end bar line into a regular bar line. I want my end bar line back, so here's our end bar line. So you click it, you drag it. Once the measure that you want is highlighted, then you let go, and bam, there's your bar line. So if I wanted to repeat this, stick a repeat on that measure. If I wanted the next section to repeat as well, I could either put a repeat here and then a backwards repeat here to show that this section repeats too. Or there's a special kind of repeat sign here that does the same thing. However, in our song we actually don't have any repeats or first and second endings, so I'm going to take that stuff out by pressing Control and X. This is a double bar line that you can use to show different sections of a song. So if the song changes a lot or you have a key change, you'll have two regular bar lines right next to each other. So there's our bar lines. Arpeggios and glissandi. So an arpeggio or glissando involves going up and down the keyboard, or I think it's a specific bowing technique if you're doing violin or other bowed string instruments. I don't know. I'm not an expert at string instruments, but I think that's what it is. So these are different symbols for arpeggios and glissandi, which is the plural of glissando, which once again we probably won't need. Tremolos, that's the fancy thing where you shake your hand back and forth between two notes on the piano. So if you specifically want to tell somebody to do that, then you would drag this to a note. It goes on the note like that. But I'm going to take that off because we don't need that. Okay. Text. Okay, so this is where we have a few different things. So if you want to give the person playing your music a specific instruction, you have to drag the text to a note or a rest, then double click it to edit it. So you can backspace once you're in that box, and then you can type in what you want. After that, you can drag it wherever you want in the sheet music, but I don't want this here anymore, so I'm going to take that out. What I do want actually though is this thing, swing. Swing makes your eighths bouncy. So, actually, let's listen to it without swing. Okay, now I'm gonna add swing. And there are other ways to tell somebody to swing their eighth notes, but this is the main thing that we have in our MuseScore tools right now. Now let's see what it's on. So now we have bouncy eighth notes, but the rhythm's still not quite right. So we'll come back and do the rhythm. So here's tempo. So all these different things are if you're using different notes to count. So in the beginning, when you take piano lessons, you're counting quarter notes for a lot of the beginning of lessons. Later on, you'll learn other time signatures where you count using other types of notes. But for now, really, usually what you'll need is to count quarter notes. So these are your tempos. You would drag this to a note and type in whatever speed you want. Let's see what that does. Okay, so that slowed down a lot because we went from 100 to 60, but I don't want to do that. We also have words here describing how fast to go. So if you don't want somebody to go a specific number of beats per minute and you're just like, play it fast, play medium, etc. It's interesting that, oh wait, no, they do have adagio. Oh, I said fast when I meant slow. Adagio is slow, allegro is fast, moderato is medium. Anyway, so there's all of our tempo markings. Dynamics, you know what dynamics are. Dynamics tell you how soft or loud to play. So we have the very softest, pianissimo, pianissimo, piano, getting louder and louder, mezzo piano, mezzo forte, forte, fortissimo, fortissimo, forte then piano, sforzando. Anyway, so we have our basic dynamics. All give us mezzo forte. Once again, dynamics have to be dragged to a note. So if I were to try to drop mezzo forte in the middle of the staff like that, it wouldn't work. So I have to drag it to a specific note. And then you can move it around if you don't like where it lands. So there's our dynamics. Fingering, if you want to specifically tell somebody which finger numbers to use, drag a number to a note. And that shows up really tiny. You can change, I believe, how big it is. I don't remember how, but anyway, so there's that. You can add fingering. Repeats and jumps. So, this is our D.S al Coda, D.C al Coda, fine, our coda symbol, tu coda, segno, all that different stuff. So if you have a song where you want to, let's see, D.C al fine. Actually, let's do a D.S al Coda and get fancy with it. So this tells us when we get here, we go back to the symbol. Okay, let me try that again. So these have to be dragged to a measure rather than a note. Okay. So this is all the different stuff that you need in order to do the coda thing. So let's see. I'm going to play from this rest. D.S al Coda. So the D.S should take us back to the fancy S looking thing. And tu coda should send us to our coda symbol. Okay. I'm going to take all this stuff out because we don't need it. Oh, there are repeat signs in this section. The things you learn. I prefer to do them from bar lines, though, rather than from repeats and jumps. So in the bar lines menu, we have repeat signs as well. Fretboard diagrams we don't need for piano. This is more for guitar, or if you wanted to give a guitarist the option to play with your piano sheet music. Breaks and spacers. This is more just like layout stuff that we don't really need. Once again, don't need that. Beam properties. This lets you break or attach beams. So like for 8th notes, 16th notes, notes that are attached with a beam, you can break them. Break the beam. So that means that these 3 notes would be attached with a beam, but this one wouldn't be attached to them. If I want to reconnect it, I can either undo or oh, that's not what I wanted. That's something you can do apparently, but I dragged that to the wrong note. So beam stuff has to be dragged to a specific note. Okay, these are feathered beams, which we're not using yet. So that's all the different stuff that you can do from here. Now, let's listen to our song again. Now, I'm going to save it. So first of all, the song Happy Birthday is not in 4/4. It's in 3/4. So, I'm going to change the time signature. And when you change the time signature in one clef, it automatically changes it in the other clef. Now, it's not going to sound any different for us, but if you count along with it, it would sound different. Now, as you know, this next note is a longer note, so we turn that into a quarter note. But when you turn that into a quarter note, the next 8th note disappears. Why? Because the quarter note swallows up the 8th note. There's not enough room. If we have a pair of 8th notes here and a pair of 8th notes here, there's not enough room to have a quarter note and another 8th note. So, I'm going to have to rewrite a lot of these. Okay, sounds good so far. I already have in mind what the notes are for this song. It's possible that it might be more difficult for people who aren't used to doing this, or who aren't used to playing by ear, to figure this out. Alright, now, let's see. Okay, let's take away, I'm going to take away that whole note. Okay, we want 8th notes. That turned my rest into 8th rest, but that's okay. I'm going to click on this 8th rest and press N. With the exception of whole rests, whatever type of rest you click on, that's the type of, if you press N, that's the type of note that you're going to be putting in. If you don't want to put in that type of note, you can click on any of these note values here that you want to put that in. So I could turn this into a half note. I'm going to do an 8th note instead. Let's see. Do 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 do. Okay. 8th notes and quarter notes. All right, let's listen to how it sounds now. gonna save it. But there's one problem. And the problem is, well, first of all, one of the problems is that the metronome is really loud. And I want to be able to hear the metronome, but I don't want it to be overpowering. Let me close that. View synthesizer. So all I use this for really is setting the overall volume of the whole song when it plays. There are other things that you can do with this, but I have not explored that yet. So, anyway. It used to be that I could adjust the volume of the metronome from here, but it looks like I can't do that anymore. Anyway, I am going to have us, though, hear this with the metronome, because you're going to hear that even though the rhythm sounds right, some of the beats are not in the right place. Okay, so it might be kind of subtle. I'm going to count out loud, actually, while this goes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what we actually want is we want the word birthday to be where beat 1 is. Right now, happy is where beat 1 is. Happy actually should be where beat 3 is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy all of this. Control C. I'm going to click on that note and hold down Shift and press the arrow keys. I'm going to take out those notes. And starting from here, I'm going to select these and I'm going to paste over this. So this will replace the notes that I currently have with the notes that I copied. I'm going to hold down Control. I'm going to press V to paste. Now. Wait. What the heck? Okay, I made a mistake. What the heck did I do? Okay, let's try this again. Control copy. Control C, sorry. Control V. There we go. I'm gonna take those out. Alright, let's try this again. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I want to change what some of these notes look like. First of all, we're going to end with a dotted half note. Second of all, this quarter note doesn't need to be tied. We can make that a half note instead. I am going to... I'm trying to decide whether to make this a quarter note with a fermata, or if I just want to tie this to the next half note. Here's what I'm going to do, actually. I am going to make this a quarter note. I'm going to put a fermata on it, which is going to tell us to hold that note. I'd like to see if we can get a pause in there, too. Okay. That's not what I wanted. Okay, I'm going to drag this pause to this note. Okay, copy that, paste it, take that out. Now, I'm going to do something to this measure. I'm going to turn this into a pickup measure, which means that instead of us seeing this half rest, all we'll see is these two notes at the end of the measure. Measure properties. nominal, 3/4, actual, 1/4. Also, when you're counting measures in a song, if it has a pickup measure, then that does not count as a full measure. So we're excluding it from the measure count. Apply. Okay. Okay, I have to add in the other stuff that I had now. Okay, so I'll put in our... What is that little dash thing doing there? Don't know what that means. Okay. Now, I'm going to put our tempo, our dynamics, so our tempo, our dynamics, and our swing direction back in. So we were at 120. Whoa, not it, wait, what would that sound like? That would be so incredibly fast. It'd be like blink of an eye fast. Nice. That is over 8,000 beats per minute. Okay. We're going to be a bit more reasonable. Set it at 120. Okay. We'll go to text. We'll get swing. And we'll go to dynamics. And we'll do mezzo forte. Now, to add lyrics, click on a note, hold down the Control key, and press L. Control L for lyrics. And then once you have that, you can just automatically start typing. In order to go to the next note, you have to put either a dash or a space, or an underline. So I put a dash because this is one word with 2 notes. So birth day to you. Happy birthday to you. Ah, not an equal sign. Okay. Happy birthday, dear. I don't know. What name should we use? Why am I blanking on every name I've ever known? Here, I'll use the name of my dog. Tucker. You can also edit these once they're already typed by double-clicking. And then I have a bunch of empty measures here that I don't need. So I'm going to click on this, I'm going to hold shift, and I'm going to click on the last measure. Whoops. There we go. Okay. Then I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to press the delete key on the top right of my computer keyboard. And that takes those out. Now our sheet music looks a little bit uneven. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to press the Enter key. And Enter just moves over everything after that. Okay, now let's hear what it sounds like. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Maybe we don't need the pause. I think the fermata is enough, actually. Is there a fermata that tells us to hold extra long? Long fermata. What is long fermata? A long fermata indicates that a note is held quite a lot longer than the rhythm indicates, as used by Hans Werner Henze. Very long fermata indicates that a note is held for much longer than the rhythm indicates. Okay. So what is, let's see, but the one that we have is a fermata with 2 dots. Interesting. Okay. We'll stick with the regular fermata for now. That's an interesting thing to know. Very long fermata. Long fermata, short fermata, long fermata. Okay, so what's the difference between this long fermata and that long fermata? Anyway. Okay. Actually, let's see if the playback changes. If I use a long fermata. It doesn't do anything at all. Well, the person playing will know. Okay. I'm going to add some left-hand notes here. I'll make them all dotted halves. Actually. We'll give this note a fermata too because it's in the same measure as the other note that has the fermata. Oh yeah, by the way, we have dots up here too. We won't really need double, triple, or quadruple dots, just the single dot is fine. Remember that two dots mean two different things. One is staccato, the other is extending the duration of a note. This is the kind of dot that extends the duration. So if you click on a note and then you add the dot to it, it makes it, it adds half the note's value. So we'll do, nope, not double dots, just the one dot, thank you.